Weather in northern Michigan is full of surprises. Your UpNorthLive storm team is helping you prepare with crucial severe weather safety tips, alerting you to major changes to weather watches and warnings, and exploring some of northern Michigan's biggest weather events. The UpNorthLive Storm Team Severe Weather Special starts now.
Well, good evening, everyone. It's 8 o'clock. Thanks for joining us this Tuesday evening for some important information, our severe weather special. I know it's a little hard to think of. We have snow out there tonight in parts of northern Michigan, but not far around the corner. We are going to be dealing with the potential for some severe weather. And I know when you think about northern Michigan in general, we don't typically think a lot about severe weather. It's not like we're in Tornado Alley in areas like Kansas or Texas, but as we've seen in the past, there certainly are significant weather events that do occur across northern Michigan. In every single county, we cover 26 of them here in northern Michigan, has had severe weather. And we'll continue to do so, of course, as we move forward. Well, we're going to kind of highlight tonight a few things. We're going to kind of look at the history of severe weather in northern Michigan, some of the bigger events that we've had. We're also going to take a look at severe weather safety tips, what to do in certain cases, and some of the terminology. Because we do a lot of school visits. We still have questions about what is a warning versus a watch. Some of the outlooks that are given. So when we say there's a slight risk for severe weather or a moderate risk, what does all that mean? And also, the National Weather Service has made some changes, some official changes to some of the warnings. Not so much on severe thunderstorm and tornadoes, but some of the terminology that we use for warnings, for heat, for cold weather. Meteorologist Heather Bricka is going to have a little bit more on that. But what we're going to start with tonight is a look at some of the historic severe weather events that have happened here across northern Michigan. When thinking about severe thunderstorms and tornadoes, while they do happen, northern Michigan is not typically prone to a lot of severe weather. But there are several cases where severe weather has ravaged parts of the area. Much of our severe weather typically is straight-line wind damage or large hail on occasion, but as we saw in May of 2022 in Gaylord, we do get tornadoes. On April 3rd, 1956, an F4 rated tornado formed near Onekama in Manistee County, traveling 60 miles to Grand Traverse Bay, killing one person and destroying 13 homes, 26 barns, and injuring 25 people. More recently, in October of 2007, an EF2 tornado crossed over parts of Kalkaska County, killing one person and doing damage to the Kalkaska County Airport. Most recently was the devastating EF3 rated tornado that struck Gaylord on May 20th, 2022, leading to 2 fatalities. That tornado was the second costliest in the entire United States in 2022, with over $50 million in damage. Straight-line wind events are more common, but sometimes they are as much, if not more, devastating. On May 31st, 1998, a derecho, or a long-lived straight-line windstorm, crossed over the lower peninsula with 90 to 130 mile-per-hour wind gusts, leading to 4 fatalities and injuring 146 people. 250 homes were destroyed, with $172 million in damages in the lower peninsula. In northern Michigan, many folks in parts of the Grand Traverse region may recall the straight-line wind damage of August 2nd, 2015. With baseball-sized hail and miles of trees blown over, with the worst damage around the Glen Arbor region in Leelanau County. Damage was estimated at $82 million, making it the costliest storm ever for northern Michigan. That's why it's important, with all of the great outdoor activities we have across northern Michigan, to remain weather aware. And as I just discussed there, we certainly do have severe weather events. You know, the event like the Gaylord tornado, which happened again almost 3 years ago now in 2022, May of 2022, while that was a massive event, the issue there is that tornado, while it was a strong one, also happened to go right over a densely populated area. And if you ever fly over northern Michigan in an airplane or a jet, you can see how much rural area there is. So that was just an unfortunate set of circumstances that tornado happened to go right over Gaylord. Another interesting note, while a lot of our tornadoes here in northern Michigan are more in the summer, that's kind of our peak for any tornado activity. We've had big storms in different times of the year. The Gaylord tornado, for instance, while our peak is usually June or July into early August, that was in May. We also had a tornado fatality, which I referenced in that story there, in October. That was in 2007 in parts of Kalkaska County. So we do, even in the spring, definitely in the summer, but also in the fall, have tornado events. But what's more common for us here in northern Michigan are just straight line wind events. And many of you have probably witnessed that at some point in your life, perhaps, where a storm will lead to a downburst. You get all the trees laying over the same way. That's what we had in the Grand Traverse region in the August 2nd, 2015 storm. And we've had other cases, too, where large trees have been blown over. And, of course, we do get hail here in northern Michigan. But unlike out in the plains, we don't typically get anything much more than an EF3 rated tornado. That's not to say it can't happen, but we don't get the ingredients that they do in other places of the country. What we're going to do now is we're going to take a look. Meteorologist Trevor Robideau took a great in-depth look here at what to do during tornadoes, some of the safety, and some of the terminology, too, that we use on the air, and he explains that in this story right here.
Staying aware and prepared for severe weather is the most important aspect of staying safe in the event of severe weather impacting you and your family. Having an effective severe weather plan starts with understanding the difference between watches and warnings. There are 3 levels to severe weather forecasting: outlooks, watches, and then warnings. The first level to be aware of are called outlooks or severe risk categories. These are issued by the Storm Prediction Center anywhere from 1 to 4 days ahead of time to outline the potential for severe risk over a wide area and are allocated into 5 different categories: marginal, slight, enhanced, moderate, and high risks. The highest risk being the high risk, of course, and the lowest being the marginal risks. The ones that we see the most commonly in northern Michigan are the marginal and light risk, which are usually isolated to scattered at best chances for severe weather that are usually short-lived with relatively low intensity. With these, usually a tornado or two are very possible but unlikely. Anything above the slight risk, enhanced all the way up to higher, usually reserved for southern ends of the country in Tornado and Dixie Alley. But it's still good to be aware that, generally speaking, you go up higher in the tiers, you have larger storms that last longer and are more intense. Next up is watches and warnings. And for this, I want to use a demonstration that I think will be a little easier to digest. Let's talk sandwiches. A watch is all the ingredients that you need to make your sandwich. It's all the ingredients in order to make severe weather, and they have to be present in the atmosphere. So when you go to make a sandwich, what are some things you need? You're going to need some bread. That's pretty important. You're going to need potentially cheese, like pepper jack or American cheddar cheese. Maybe you want some lunch meats, some turkey or ham. Those are pretty important. Or maybe you're a BLT person and you want some bacon or even some lettuce. And then maybe throw in some condiments there too, some ketchup or some mustard. You get the idea. These are all the basic ingredients in order to create our sandwich. That is our watch. It's all the ingredients that are present in the atmosphere. But we don't have our sandwich yet because we have to make it. The warning is our sandwich. All the ingredients that were present in the atmosphere have come together to make the final product. And in this case, we have a sandwich warning. Hopefully, that helps you understand the difference between watches and warnings. There are many different warnings that can be issued around northern Michigan during severe weather season. The first is a severe storm warning. For a storm to be considered a severe storm, it needs to meet one or both of these criteria. It needs to be either 58 miles per hour or more, or at least an inch of hail in diameter, which is about the size of a quarter. Again, it needs to meet either one or both of these requirements for it to be considered a severe storm. Then there is the tornado watch and tornado warning, which follow the same criteria for normal severe weather watches and warnings. In the event that you are in a tornado warning, do not wait. You should immediately take cover in the best spot in your home. The best place for your home that should be planned ahead of time is going to be in the innermost part of your home on the lowest floor possible. The best possible places will usually be in a hall or an inside bathroom or even the basement, which is the best place to be in the event of a tornado. And in the unlikely event that you are in the path of a tornado, there's a few places that you don't want to be. I know tornadoes can be a lot of fun to watch in person, but in the event that one is headed your way, you don't want to be on the roof. You don't want to be near any windows or external walls, and you definitely don't want to be anywhere near any powered devices, wires, or electronics of any kind. A reminder that a tornado shelter should be well thought out before the event of severe weather and included in your severe weather plan. In northern Michigan, I'm Trevor Robideau reporting.
All right, great job there, Trevor, explaining all this. And a question I get sometimes is, I'll even get emails or people writing in, oh my gosh, there's a big storm overhead and it's just, there's so much lightning. but there's no warning. And while lightning happens in every thunderstorm, lightning is not a criteria. I just want to point this out. Lightning is not a criteria to issue a severe thunderstorm warning. Of course, it's dangerous. You should head indoors if you're near a storm that has lightning, but lightning is not a criteria. As Trevor mentioned, you have to have sustained winds, or wind gusts, I should say, up to 58 miles per hour or higher, and then also 1-inch diameter hail or higher. And the way they determine that, why 58 miles per hour? Why is that the magic number? So if a storm has, say, a 54 mile per hour wind gust, it's not severe, but if it's 59 miles per hour, it is. Studies at the National Severe Storms Laboratory, which is in Norman, Oklahoma, they do studies based on wind speed when you start to see a lot of damage. And once you get over that 58 mile per hour criteria, they determine that that's when more damage is likely, and so that became the criteria to issue a severe thunderstorm warning. Another thing I should point out too, we don't issue severe thunderstorm warnings here. I don't issue them. I relay them, but they are issued always by the National Weather Service. And in Michigan, we have 4 offices that cover the state of Michigan. Marquette covers the west and central UP. Gaylord covers the eastern UP and much of northern into parts of central Michigan. There's an office in Grand Rapids, which covers southwest Michigan, as you would imagine, including our southern counties, Ludington, Clare, Big Rapids, for instance. And then the National Weather Service office in White Lake near Detroit covers southeast Michigan. So there are 4 primary National Weather Service offices. But the minute that they issue a watch warning, we get that information right on this computer right here, and we can immediately put that to air and let you know what is going on with that. And of course, in severe weather, we do break in as well. So great story there by Trevor. You know, he mentioned the outlooks from moderate or high, moderate, enhanced, down to slight and marginal. Every day, the Storm Prediction Center in Norman, Oklahoma puts out outlooks for the entire country. You can just Google SPC or Storm Prediction Center. You can see them, you know, online. And here's what it looks like for tomorrow. So if you want to take that, Dale, not much severe weather tomorrow. This is actually, or I should say this is for this evening. A marginal risk, and you see the categories there that Trevor talked about. Marginal, slight, enhanced, moderate, and high. A moderate risk for our area is rarely issued, and I think I've only seen, going back, a high risk here for northern Michigan maybe once, if that. They are very rarely issued, and if they do, they're usually in the deep south. That's the case where you get long-lasting, dangerous tornadoes. That's today. There's tomorrow. It changes based on what's going on across the country. You can see a marginal risk there, parts of Kansas into Nebraska. And then this is for Thursday, and we see now a slight risk, that third category, for parts of Iowa, northern Missouri, into Nebraska. Notice our area is also in a little bit of green here, but that's just for general thunderstorms. The expectation for Thursday, at least, is we are not going to see severe weather here, but we could get a rumble or two of thunder. So those are the outlooks. I want to point out one more thing, too. This is the average tornadoes per month. Now, we start in January. You can see in the deep south, parts of Texas averages 3 to 4, maybe 5 to 6, as well as Mississippi. And as we get deeper into the season, as things start to warm up, you see the trend moving northward. Missouri heading into Tornado Alley. So this is by April. Notice here in Michigan, very few tornadoes through April. I want to make a comment on that. We've had already 16 tornadoes in the state this month, or so far this year for Michigan, 16 total. In a normal year, we average about 16. So for at least this year, we are well ahead of normal. A lot of those tornadoes were downstate, but we've already had 16 tornadoes in Michigan so far, which is our yearly average. So that is the month of April. We get into May, that's when we start seeing a better chance on a typical year for severe weather. And look out in Tornado Alley, all in those red areas, 9 to 10, over 10 tornadoes per month in some of those states, the average. As things continue to warm, get the moist air off the Gulf of Mexico, dry, cooler air coming out of Canada, and that sets up that potential for some severe weather. And then we kind of peak here in northern Michigan. You can see there's a higher risk for tornadoes off to our west, but once we get into June, into July, August, that's usually our typical peak here in an average year. And then, of course, we get into fall, and then the numbers start dropping off as things start to gradually cool down. There's November, and then we'll end it here with the month of December. So I just want to make a few comments on that. I want to go now to meteorologist Heather Bricka. She did a story. There are some changes that the National Weather Service has made recently on some of their watches and warnings. Some are named differently than what you might have traditionally heard. Here's her story.
Changes to wind chill headlines have been made already, but that's not the only change this year. Wind chill headlines are replaced by a blanket extreme cold headline to simplify. So these are issued by the National Weather Service, and this is the old watches and warnings and advisories, and these are the new ones on the bottom, what they're changed to now. So formerly it was the extreme cold watch and wind chill watch. That is now changed to extreme cold watch. Now the extreme cold warning and wind chill warning has now been consolidated to extreme cold warning. Wind chill advisory, that's been changed to cold weather advisory. And the primary message, according to the National Weather Service, is that cold air is dangerous, wind or not.
Cold weather advisory is in the lower peninsula is 15 below, and for parts of the UP it's 20 below, and then the western UP is actually 25 below.
This is a change of 5 degrees to match Gaylord's headlines with National Weather Service in Grand Rapids and Detroit. And the Upper Peninsula matches Gaylord's with Marquette's criteria. Heat headlines are also going to change going into warmer weather season. Now, this is what the former excessive heat watches and warnings were called. They're now going to be called extreme heat watches and warnings. That's to match the extreme cold watches and warnings that are being issued by the National Weather Service. So the extreme heat watch is issued when dangerous heat is possible. Extreme heat warnings are issued when dangerous heat is happening or about to happen. The primary message is that heat is dangerous, and the criteria for extreme heat warnings has changed with the new name.
It's like the daytime temperatures with the apparent temperature of 105 degrees or higher. The apparent temperature is also sometimes referred to as the heat index when you're talking about warm temperatures. But in addition to the daytime temperatures being higher, it also has a component where the apparent temperature at night doesn't go below 75 degrees for 48 hours.
This accounts for accumulated stress on the body over a couple of days. Heat is dangerous during the warmer weather months, but severe weather can be just as deadly.
All thunderstorms have lightning, and lightning is a significant killer. And so, being outdoors exposed during thunderstorms at all is just not a good idea. So, when there's thunderstorms in the forecast, it's a good idea to be ready to move to a shelter, regardless of the strength of the storm, because lightning can be deadly just as well.
Thunderstorms are dangerous, but so are tornadoes if you are not prepared for them. The Gaylord tornado was a reminder for northern Michiganders that even though tornadoes are not common, they are possible.
If anything that came out of the Gaylord tornado, it's like, people think we don't get those up here, and we don't get bigger tornadoes very frequently, but we do get them, and we just always need to be prepared. Pay attention to the forecast, and if you're in a period where severe weather is possible, just make sure you're prepared to take precautions, take shelter if the need arises.
And because we do get them, make sure you have a severe weather plan in place. If you need help making a plan, visit ready.gov/plan. In northern Michigan, I'm meteorologist Heather Bricka reporting.
Thanks a lot, Heather. Some great information. So you saw there the main headlines that are going to be changed, and it's not the severe thunderstorm warning. That will still stay, and tornado warning. They didn't change that. But they are changing the cold and hot weather headlines. So again, you're not going to see a wind chill warning anymore. You're going to see an extreme cold advisory instead. It's kind of a naming. They're kind of taking these and consolidating them, as Heather mentioned, into just different wording. But the gist is the same. It's still going to be very cold. You saw the criteria there that Heather mentioned. The same thing for heat. Where they had excessive heat advisories, those are now going to be changed in their names as well. So that's kind of a look at some of the changes from the National Weather Service. And as we've seen in this show, we do get severe weather. It certainly can happen. A lot of days the sun's out, it's 70 degrees and sunny. I get that, but just always be severe weather aware, because things, as we've seen in some cases, come almost seemingly out of nowhere. We do really try to, of course, give you a heads up on everything, but it's always good to be weather aware as well. I had a good question. Jonathan asked this one. Okay, you say that 1-inch diameter hail is the criteria for a severe thunderstorm. Well, how big is that? What is it, 1-inch diameter? What does that mean? So let's take a look at that. This is a hail size comparison to show you. So you get these hail falling out of the sky. There it is. And actually, I'll show you here some of what this looks like. And we'll pencil them in. So pea-size hail, that's on the left side of the screen there. That's about 1/4 inch. That's it. Marble-size hail is about 1/2 inch. Penny-size hail, that is about 3/4 inch size. So even if you have penny the size, or hail rather, the size of pennies, it's not really going to do much for you. And then quarter-size hail, or I should say it is, but it's not at a severe level. You have to get to that 1-inch diameter. You see the red there, severe levels, to have severe weather criteria. And so 1-inch diameter hail is about the size of 1/4. 1.5 inches is ping pong size. We do see that on occasion here in northern Michigan. Hen egg size or egg size, about 2 inches. Tennis ball, you're talking about 2.5-inch diameter hail. Think of the wind that it takes in a storm going up, the updraft, to keep that size hail in the sky. It's a lot. That's why you'll usually have smaller hail, unless the storm is very intense, to keep that size hail up there. Baseball size hail, 2 3/4. Softball, about 4 inches diameter hail, and grapefruit size is about 4.5 inches. I believe the biggest hail we've had here in northern Michigan, it was actually on that August 2nd, 2015 storm, but it was down by West Branch in Ogama County, and I believe that was around that 4.5-inch diameter size, which is some of the biggest hail we've ever seen in our state. But typically we're on the lower end of some of that as far as hail size is concerned. So that's kind of a look at that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. We've had severe weather out of season. We mentioned that. May, we do get severe weather, but usually June and July are a typical peak into early August for severe weather here in northern Michigan. Let's see if there's any other questions here on our UpNorthLive Facebook, X, and YouTube pages. Taking a look here. A lot of folks just kind of commenting on the show in general here. But it was an interesting look back at some of the history of severe weather that we've had here in northern Michigan and what to kind of expect, and some great safety tips there from Trevor as well. I want to thank you for joining us this evening. This is important information. We are going to have another one of these coming up as we head into the fall. We'll kind of take a look at winter weather as well. As always, thanks for joining us this evening. Stay safe out there. Have a good evening.